I'd like to call to order our December 14th, 2020 Board of Education meeting for the Cedar Rapids Community School District. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
This is a roll call vote.
Director Anhalt,
Aye.
Director Borcherding, Director Garlock,
Aye.
Director Merschbrock,
Aye.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
and President Humbles.
Aye. Next is a closed session to discuss the purchase of real estate. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
This is a roll call vote.
Director Borcherding. Did she give me the, okay, there we go. Very good. Director Merschbrock,
Aye.
Director Garlock,
Aye.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
President Humbles. Did I get everybody?
You missed me.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. President Humbles.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome to our December the 14th Board of Education meeting. We opened our meeting at 4:30 p.m. for a closed session, and we are now returning to resume our regular agenda. So what we'll move to first is our superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Humbles, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Lots of celebrations tonight, and they're focused on kids. So if you haven't seen this already, our mock trial teams, we had 5 from throughout the district that competed. And the results of the competition are on the screen. 4 of our teams placed in the top 8, including Harding team, who won, and Franklin team, who tied for 3rd. There is a lot of work and research and time and effort that goes into the mock trial competition, and it gives our kids those profile of a graduate skills that we so want them to feel confident in. And so just congratulations to all of our students and the coaches and the parents and the community members who support this effort. Just so proud of our students. Secondly, our fall women's sports wrapped up with a lot of honors. Congratulations to 29 of our high school students who've been named the 2020 Mississippi Valley Conference All Division students from volleyball, swimming, and diving. Even despite all of our barriers, even access to facilities because of the derecho, our students soared above and committed to their passions and really produced some amazing results. So congratulations to all of our students. And you can find all their names and their honors on our website. And then lastly, this is just a really cool story for one of our English language learning classrooms. I read a book written by Henry Winkler, who talks about a character who struggles with his own learning needs and learning struggles, but really with a lot of support, finds his path. And our English language learning students really connected with his story and connected with Henry Winkler, who then wrote back to the students. And so it was a really authentic, great experience. You maybe saw our story on social media, but we just wanted to highlight that even in these difficult times, our kids are finding amazing ways to connect to their learning and make it relevant, make it passionate, and definitely commit to our vision. So thank you to our educators, our coaches, our sponsors, and our parents who've made amazing things happen throughout this season and this very challenging fall. So congratulations to all of our students and our teachers and coaches who've made great things happen this fall. So just a few moments of celebration, and that's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Bush. And it's always great to hear great news about what's happening in our district. Thank you so much. Do we have any board reports?
I just briefly would like to thank all of you who participated in the meetings with our legislators. And I'm continuing the conversation with them, and I'll be updating you all on our next step in the next day or two. So thank you for everyone who participated.
And thank you for putting that together, Director Garla. Thank you so much. Any other reports?
Yes, President Humbles. Again, I would like to thank Director Garlock for putting that together. It was a very interesting to be able to sit down with local legislators. I think got some very good information. At our meeting with the legislators, I asked Senator Liz Mathis if she could share with me I knew the revenue sharing conference was going to be held. And so she shared with me a website. so I was able to go online and watch live the conference. An interesting process, something I had never seen before. I'd heard about it and so on. My report from it, I would say, is that they're struggling it's a very difficult climate to try to make assumptions for 6 months out, and they do 6 months and then actually 18. So they're working at the end of this fiscal year 2021, but more importantly, we'll look at projections for the 21-22 year that the governor will base her budget for the coming legislation on. They actually saw a little bit of revenue growth, but it's very, very small. From what I could gather, they were talking about like 300 million, which seems like a lot, but when you start spreading that over all of agencies throughout the state government with that have built-in requirements as far as increases in budgets and so on, I think it's pretty dismal for us to think that there would be any new funding for any new programs, which is pretty hard to take right now when we know that we would like to see additional funding for mental health and so on. So we will see. They seem to be more optimistic on the 21-22. They said that the recovery would be happening, but it would be slow. Hopefully the COVID vaccinations will help steady some things out, but it's going to be a long-term thing. So I think we wait for the governor's budget to see, but I would anticipate that would probably see very, very little in SSA growth. That would be about all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other board reports? Thank you. We will move on to communications, delegations, and petition. We'll invite our public speakers to address the board. I'd like to remind those who have requested to address the board to please state your name and address for the record when called. You will be given up to 5 minutes for your remarks. Board Secretary Day will serve as your timer and inform you when your time is up. Additionally, in order to abide by the open meeting law, I'd like to remind our speakers that there will be no dialogue between the board members and the public during this time, except to clarify the nature of the question or comments from the individual speaking. Laurel, will you call our first speaker?
Thank you, President Humbles. Tonight's speaker, first on our list, is Brad Fisher. Brad is here to talk about remote learning for IEP students. And Brad, if you want to unmute yourself, I will share the screen. And you may begin in your 5 minutes when I have it up on the clock here. All right, anytime you want to go ahead, Brad.
Okay, kind of like what you talked about, my name is Brad Fisher. My address is 1734 Bobcat Drive, Northwest. I have 2 students in the Viola Gibson School, and one of them has an IEP. First of all, I understand the process with virtual learning. You know, I understand that there's indicators. I understand that, you know, they look at infection rates and hospitalization rates and absentee rates, and I get that. I understand that. What I want to kind of emphasize is virtual learning for regular students is not the same as IEP students. My son's autistic, and virtual learning does not work for him. So for the school district to do a blanket against all students saying that we're going to do virtual learning at all students. In my opinion, that is not taking the IEP into account. There's a concept of free and appropriate education, that virtual learning does not work with certain IEP students. Not every single IEP is the same. So, my daughter is a little bit behind on reading. She has an IEP. She did okay with virtual learning. The argument of virtual learning versus in-class learning is irrelevant to this. This is specifically talking about IEP students. The first day we did virtual learning with my son, we worked with them, we went over and just really worked with them. About an hour into it, he had a complete meltdown and was crying in the corner. We hadn't seen anything like that for probably over a year. And I'm looking at my son, I'm seeing him cry in a corner, and then I see my daughter being engaged. And I'm really looking at these two kids and saying, I don't understand how these can be equal. I don't see how the school district can appropriately saying that, yes, this 6-year-old autistic boy is getting a free and appropriate education, virtual learning. It doesn't happen. I understand the situation. I get it. It has nothing to do with whether virtual learning is right or wrong. Different subject, different argument. This is specifically for IEP students. We need to take a closer look and say, is there a safe way to do in-class learning for very specific small group of kids? I don't know what that number is for different students with the IEPs in the area, but the school district, if we have to do this again, which hopefully we don't, but if we have to do this again, the school district needs to look case by case at IEP students and seeing which ones cannot practically do that. I mean, which ones does virtual learning does not work with the IEP students? Which ones does it work? The ones that does, all right, we'll do virtual learning for them. But these handful of kiddos, it doesn't work. It's like not going to school. And in my opinion, if you're going to teach these kids over here, but these kids over here, we're gonna be like, they're too hard. So we're just gonna not worry about them. That's essentially what they did with my son. The school district said, we're gonna teach all these kids over here, but this kid is gonna be too hard. We can't do it. So we're just not gonna teach him. My son is in the bottom 1% in multiple categories. He's a smart kid. He just has problems getting it out. He needs in-person specialized training that he gets while he's in school. He does not get it through virtual learning. Other thing that school district needs to look at is some catch-up sessions, possibly during the summer. Summer school is probably the best option. But my son, we had half the year last year, half the spring. We had some in the fall. He is behind. There's a lot of IEP kids that are behind. The school district needs to take a look at doing a special catch-up session, summer school session, especially for kiddos with the IEPs. School district needs to take a closer look on how IEPs are affected by virtual learning, because for a lot of kiddos, it doesn't work at all.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Our next speaker will be Tanya Johnson, and Tanya is here tonight to speak about early retirement and return to learn. So Tanya, whenever you're ready, I will go ahead and start the clock.
Thanks. I'm Tanya Johnson, 3816 Riverside Drive, Northeast Cedar Rapids. And I am speaking tonight as the Cedar Rapids Education Association president. The first thing tonight, school board members, you're going to be voting on the voluntary retirement incentive program in the consent agenda. Even though over the last few years, this has changed for many groups, the teacher incentive remains the same, 105 days at per diem plus any wellness days. We appreciate this package and we're the first to receive the wellness days, We bargained this into our contract several years ago, and it is now being given to almost all of the groups. As we start to look into bargaining for the 21-22 school year and what the budget holds, we can see that the next few years may be financially tough. The teachers and the paras would like to suggest an additional 1-year incentive for early retirement in order to get more retirees than we have seen in the last few years. If we can incentivize more teachers and paras to retire, then we would not need to cut any of our brand new teachers or paras. The retirements would remove the larger salaries from the general fund, and this would help with our budget. So that's just a suggestion. I also want to say thank you to our teachers, paras, and staff that have been working in person and virtually. It has definitely been a roller coaster as we have started the beginning of the year, some buildings in person, some buildings remote. And like the speaker that just spoke, then we had a time frame when we all were virtual. So we are continuing to be flexible and continuing to try to do what's best for our students. The CREA is advocating to make sure our staff members are safe and our students are safe. Sometimes this may be in an in-person or it may be in a virtual setting. So we are continuing to advocate for that and wanting to make sure that our buildings are clean and that we have our social distancing that we need to have. Lastly, I want to share some really, really good news that I know Superintendent Bush wanted to share, but I appreciate her giving me the opportunity to share this good news. We have 3 brand new National Board Certified teachers in Cedar Rapids. Bridget Castelluccio, 4th grade teacher, Lindsay Thompson, kindergarten teacher, and Tara Brockmeyer, kindergarten teacher. All 3 teachers at the Kenwood Leadership Academy found out on Saturday that they are now National Board Certified teachers. So super excited about that. And also the great thing about this is when you do National Board Certification, it's always more fun and more supportive to do it as a team. And there have been a group of 5 or 6 teachers from Kenwood Leadership Academy that worked together. So 3 of them finished up everything and got that submitted this year and passed. And then we have a couple more that are submitting this spring, and I'm sure we'll be passing in the near future as well. So that, I just wanted to end with some positive news. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, President Humbles. That concludes the number of speakers for this evening's board meeting.
Thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda, are there any items that a board member would like to pull for a comment, question, or a separate vote?
President Humbles, I just have a question just for my own education. It's item BA-21-165. It's concerning the new elementary school at Coolidge. We're being asked to vote on a change order. And like I said, this is just for my own information. And I know change orders happen all the time as the construction process takes place. But I'm just curious about the very first item in our list. It says it results from an error or omission in the plans or specs, resulting in an added wall switch. And I'm just wondering about the error or omission part of that. Is it common for errors and omissions to happen that then we are responsible for? The other 2 items that are also change orders, I completely understand because they were at our request. So of course we would be expected to pay that. But if there's an error or omission, is that our responsibility?
I can speak up to this, I think, if you guys can hear me okay. Yeah, that's standard practice. that everybody's human and there are a few things that get missed, whether it's at the fault of the owner or at the architect, but ultimately that is the owner's expense to cover that. So kind of the thought process behind that is if it wasn't missed, we would have paid for that originally. So it is still ours to pay for now.
Okay. I just needed some clarification as we embark on these building projects, just to make sure that everything we're approving is as it should be. So thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Gary, so moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Do we have any further discussion? This is a roll call vote.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
Director Merschbach,
Aye.
Director Garlock,
Aye.
Director Borcherding,
Aye.
Director Anhalt,
Aye.
President Humbles.
Aye. Next, we'll hear from the Cedar Rapids Community School Foundation. I will turn this over to Laurel for introductions.
Thank you. Members of the board, President Humbles, we're very excited to have the Cedar Rapids Schools Foundation back with us again this evening. They are here to provide their annual report. Representing them is Dr. Chris Tyler, who is the current chairperson of the foundation, and the executive director, Karen Swanson. So I will turn it over to Dr. Tyler, and looking forward to hearing what they have to report on.
Thank you, Laurel. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to present on the board's behalf. To start off with, I'm going to go over some highlights from information that's on our annual report that was live on the website beginning in September. A couple good nuggets to share, one of which, and I think the most important one, is this is the 11th consecutive year of positive fund growth for our foundation, which is no small feat in a year like we've had, and due in very large part to our executive director, Karen Swanson, who deserves many pats on the back when that's socially allowed. She has done an amazing job for us this year, and we can't thank her enough. The foundation also, as a result of our positive monetary standing, has put in some operation in our operations committee, put in some deal that we've I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm reading my chicken scratches here. We have maintained, we've allowed ourselves to maintain 3 years of projected operating funds in CDs, cash, or money market investments, trying to stay financially stable and strong, and especially in the current climate. We thought was a very strong point for our board, and from a stewardship for our donations. I thought that was a very good thing as well. A couple other highlights: we received over $440,000 in total donations, reached over 16,000 students in the district, gave 58 senior scholarships, and served 397 of our district's teachers this past year. Some other things that a foundation is proud of, as far as how this fall has gone, that we have engaged with and brought value to the district during the COVID shutdowns and the effects of the derecho. As a result of the foundation's efforts, were able to give graduating seniors yard signs for all the 4 high schools in the district. Karen Swanson wrote a COVID emergency grant, which allowed for $24,000 of hotspot device annual data plans. We also were able to provide funding for face masks to have school logos. The derecho fund that we established raised $25,000 for immediate emergency needs. And again, on behalf of our executive director, Karen Swanson, we were able to gain $150,000 grant for devices, internet access, and food from Toyota USA, which was a complete surprise, but very much appreciated and couldn't have happened at a better time. We also partnered with Hy-Vee to provide 450 Thanksgiving meals to students, families, and staff in need recently. So as you can see, the foundation has not sat down during this. We've actually done, with Karen leading the fight, done some amazing things for the district. I want to thank everybody on this call, on the board and others on hand, for your work and assistance to make this fall of 2020 as normal as possible for the staff and students. I wish you all happy holidays, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or Karen can answer them as well. Thank you very much.
Karen, did you have some comments you wanted to make?
No, ma'am. I provided everything that needed to be said to Dr.
Okay.
Tyler. So,
Well, what I would like to say is you guys have been amazing. When you're listing everything that you have done for the district, it's pretty amazing. And through this COVID, we've become stronger. So I thank you so much for everything that you do in the support of our district. It's awesome what you have done. Okay. Thank you so much. Any other board members, would you like to say anything before we move on?
Well, again, I'd just like to thank the volunteers. Chris, thank you so much for donating your time. We couldn't do it alone. It takes a village, and it's just amazing what the work that you've been able to do, particularly in this tough economic time. So thanks to the foundation. Thank you to the board for all the work that you've done.
Yes. Thank you so much.
I would just like to say that having been a trustee on the board and worked with Karen and Chris and Jen Newman as well when we were all trustees, something that never fails to impress is the flexibility that the foundation has to be able to pivot and provide assistance where that need is showing at the time. And I think that this year has just been an incredible example of how we're really working together to do what's best for students. And the foundation kind of grew in some new ways where there were some new financial needs by providing hotspots and some funding for masks. And it just is an amazing example of positive collaboration. And I thank you so much for it.
Thank you all. Next on our agenda is a resolution authorizing and providing issuance and securing the payment of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue refund bonding, and authorizing the execution and delivery of the documents. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion for that mouthful that I just read?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions at all for Dave? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Laurel?
Director Garlock,
Aye.
Director Merschbrock,
Aye.
Director Anhalt,
Aye.
Director Borcherding,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
Director Newman,
Aye.
President Humbles.
Aye. Thank you. Next, moving to learning and leadership. We are moving on to the first peek of the draft for the calendars for 2021, 2022 and 2022 and 2023 for the school years. I will turn this over to Deputy Director Quaker. There you are, to share the information with us.
Thank you very much, President Humbles. So I'm going to open and share my screen so we can get a peek here. So a few of the key calendar aspects just to remember is the school calendar year needs to be 180 days or 1,080 hours. Another piece is that we cannot start students in school before August 23rd. That's the identified date. Also for Cedar Rapids, I know we do graduation Memorial Day weekend. And we also have seniors have up to 5 days excused if they've met the graduation requirements for the inclement weather. That gets put potentially at the end of the year. I know that could change with the whole remote instruction and how we do inclement weather in the future. But those are some things to remember as we're looking at the calendar. So what we did for the 21-22 calendar is we somewhat mirrored, not this year, not the derecho calendar, but what we've done in the past. So we have 4 years of brand new teachers, and then we had 4 years of all staff of all teachers for professional learning. We start students on August 23rd on that Monday. If you go throughout, there's not a whole lot that can be shifted or changed. Of course, it depends when your holidays fall. We have Thanksgiving in there. And then, of course, the holiday break in December and the length of that currently. We have some staff learning dates. Those are the gold ones where we have those full day PL that happens. Some of it's led by district office up here, the ELSC, and others is led by the buildings. We have the March spring break. And then students would be out the last day of school, as you can see, the holiday break. And then we have staff learning, no school for students the day after Memorial Day. So students would be done based on this the day before, on that 27th. So that's a quick look. I'm going to take you to the other calendar. And then we'll go back for questions. 22-23. Same type of schedule format and setup. The alignment of the beginning of the year days is a little bit different because the 23rd is, of course, on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. Holidays are still embedded. Thanksgiving break. Then, of course, the holiday break in December shifts when the days are given and when the holidays are given to staff, but it's still, of course, the multiple days that are provided. We still have staff learning around the time of second semester and staff progress reporting on that 16th. Middle of March, spring break. Then as you look here, students would be back the day after Memorial Day just because of the count, how everything falls. Another thing is, again, that those 1,080 hours, Cedar Rapids, and you guys probably even know this better than me, but tries to keep at an additional 30 hours of instruction for students. So that's been the practice for multiple years. So that's also embedded into both of these calendars. So before I get to go to questions, I'm going to give you this. This is kind of some of the updates and timeline of what's happening. So if you look right here, December 14th, share with the board for round one review. After the board sees this, we are planning to send out tomorrow to staff and also to families, community members, and allow them to provide any feedback on the calendar. December 15th through 22nd is when that will be collected, and we can make shifts at that point in time. And then January 11th, the calendar would go to the board for approval. I'm also going to show you, this is the Google form that would go out tomorrow and be available for everyone. It says, please take a moment to provide input and offer considerations for the school district calendar for 21-22 and 22-23. Is it from parent, guardian, community member, staff member? And then basically just says after reviewing it, what considerations would you offer to the district? Another thing to remember is, you know, we have lots of negotiated groups, so those holidays can't just be moved. They are negotiated items from the various employee groups. So some of the suggestions we've had so far is can we make this a holiday but not have this a holiday? Some of those things would have to be, of course, negotiated based on master contract. But that is a quick overview of the next 2 years draft calendars and some of the things we considered when putting them together. Questions for me?
I do have one. The document you just showed us that folks are filling out, who is that going to? Is that to the families in our district?
So it will be sent out to staff, and then it will be
Staff.
put, Colleen will assist me in putting it out on social media, on the website. So any community member, parents, et
Okay.
cetera, we're trying to get it, anybody and everybody that has a voice that the calendar matters to would have an opportunity to provide some feedback and considerations.
Okay.
I have a question that's just really a point of clarification, and that's regarding adding those 30 extra hours, since we're working on hours and not days. Just to be clear, the intention of that would be to have kind of a buffer there in case we run into some inclement weather delays, et cetera, so that we're not running over in calendar time, correct?
Yes, that would be what we would typically put in for buffers. Yes, absolutely. I would also argue that the more student contact time we have, the better off in the system from the Office in Leadership and Learning position. I think it's best, the more student contact we have, the better off our students perform.
I have a question, or maybe it's just a thought. The starting date right now, we can't start before August 23rd.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of wondering if we won't see something from state legislation that will modify or change that date. I know we've heard a lot about loss of learning and trying to incorporate some, but on the other hand, I would hope that any additional days would also be funded. So also with my early report on what the economic situation is, I don't know how the state could afford to add any more days either, but I think it's something to kind of keep an ear to the ground to as we move into January.
Thank you, Director Anholt. I think we'd all agree that that would be welcomed news if they shifted that and allowed us more local control on when we can have that first student start date. Of course, with the funding to go with it.
Absolutely.
Nicole, I just wanted to add a point of clarification is on January 11th, before board would approve, by law, we are required to have a public hearing. So that would be scheduled for that evening first to hear any feedback, and then the board would be asked to approve.
Thank you, Laurel, for clarifying. Absolutely.
Are there any other questions?
I just have a final comment, and that is that from a board perspective, my perspective is that our job is to have overview. And I think that the professionals that have worked on this, the stakeholders that have been or will be contacted about this, and just the administrative team overall has done a tremendous job in making sure that teachers are represented and families and students. And I just really thank you so much for your professionalism and your expertise.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you so much. And like you said, this is our first time through and it will come back to us. So thank you for presenting to us, Deputy Director Quaker. Next up is Colleen Scholler and Jeff Lucas to present an overview of the new website.
Yes, thank you, President. I'm going to share my screen. Yes, yes, we are very excited to present an update on our website design. You might be thinking, okay, why are we taking on this significant initiative during a pandemic and a post-derecho? But we feel like now more than ever, we really need an updated, streamlined communication tool. So we've got a great team, an internal team of communications and IT. You'll see some of our team members here represented also. So we are working together on this collaboration in conjunction with our vendor partner, and that's Juicebox Interactive. They're based out of Des Moines. And as you recall, we had an extensive RFP process last summer, and we are really pleased to communicate that this partnership so far has just been great. And so we've been very happy with our choice along the way. So for our website redesign, we've got 2 goals. Like I said, now more than ever with digital assets are crucial. So we've got these goals that we need to accomplish. And that's one with the updating and the streamlining of the content, making it uniform, security issues, design elements. But also we have a second goal, and that's to really communicate our points of pride and our differentiators. So when families are making those decisions on enrollment, that they look to CRCSD. So those are 2 goals that we have for the site. And that just happens to align with our stakeholders that we got input from. So here's just a couple comments that we got back from our feedback in our research. And one supports goal 1 perfectly, that they want organized, presented more clearly information. And then to support our other goal, they want to recognize programs, special programs, and certain recognitions throughout the district. So we're in alignment there on goals. Now I would like if Jeff could hop on and walk you through the development phase of all that we've accomplished so far.
Good evening, everyone. So based on the slide, we have some initial steps we took in the development phase. And the first was working with Juicebox to develop our initial wireframes. And then we followed that up with by distributing a quantitative survey. And based on the feedback we got from those, we set up some focus groups. And then we took that feedback and did a second draft of wireframes, and then used that information to create a couple prototypes. And we'll show you those prototypes here shortly. And then follow that up with some of the site maps to help kind of see the flow of the site. And back to you, Colleen.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So let's just take a couple quick little takeaways that we got from the quantitative research. We've got 73% that are of our respondents to their survey that are coming to the site either daily or weekly, another 17% that come monthly. So the takeaway there, we have many people visiting our site on a frequent basis many times. And our traffic and our analytics tell us that also. Another key takeaway from our quantitative research is that we did a ranking of content importance. And we'll align that with what we're seeing in our existing web analytics and our traffic monitoring. And the bottom line is data was used to develop these wireframes. And so we feel like we have a really good foundation of data to drive our decision making. We also did that, as Jeff mentioned, the qualitative research, and we did 7 focus groups towards the beginning of November. And you can see who our key stakeholders we felt that we wanted to make sure that we got feedback from. We didn't want to develop this website in a vacuum. We wanted to get feedback from our key stakeholders. So we listened to them. Actually, Juicebox was our moderator because we wanted to just step back and listen and kind of have third party get the input from all our stakeholders. And so that process worked really well. We had listening sessions with Juicebox, and then we also were allowed to review 2 different wireframes. And I know it's kind of hard to see on a Google slide, but there's a representation there of one of them. And then we got their feedback and applied that to the other wireframes and to move us forward. So where are we now? We've got our next steps, and there's 2 big next steps. We have significant content developed to do, streamlining and organizing, and then we need to solidify that visual identity. So on that note with the visual identity, I thought you might like, we thought you might like to see just a little bit of what we're looking at. So this is a design direction 1 that we have, and it's very colorful, bright, friendly, and it's got everything from where video is placed to the typeface to the applications along the way for our infographics and things like that. So this gives you a little idea of where we're going for one direction. And here is another direction, a little more illustrative, editorial, clean. Some may say a little more modern. We're going to be seeing, and we're getting them actually tomorrow. I was kind of hoping we'd get them today to show you, but we're going to see these all in application in our wireframes tomorrow afternoon. So we're really excited about that meeting. And what we will do then is maybe take elements from one or the other, combine them, and our internal team and our expertise that we would bring to the table would move then one forward and have more feedback. We'll shop it around our office and get feedback on the design. So we're really excited about that phase. Can we leave it now? Now, the next thing that we really need to focus on is, and this is just an illustration for the breadth of it, the sitemap, right? We need to develop all this content out. And like I said, in a same voice, same continuity. And so anyone coming to the site, if you have multiple children and in multiple different schools, it's all going to have the same look and feel and voice. And also, if you were thinking to enroll your student and trying to make some decisions, we feel like this is the pertinent information that we really need to develop out. So once we do it for the district site, then we go and we do it for 4 high schools, 6 middle schools, and 21 elementary schools. So we are working on a plan to develop all that content. That's the next really big step. So Jeff's going to talk to you a little bit about the timeline.
So as you can see with our timeline, we're down to step 4. We've completed the strategy and planning, we've completed the wireframe, and we've completed the sitemap. Now we're really getting into the design phase. And of course, starting tomorrow, we're going to see some of that in action. Following that, we're going to dive into the content creation, and that's where we'll spend some time figuring out what is usable that we currently have, what needs revision, and what don't we have that we need to create. Once we get through that, the site coding kind of falls right in line around the same time, and that's when they'll start getting specific and building all the details that we need. And once we kind of get there, then the content issue begins, and that's when we'll start actually moving it and creating the new content and getting everything kind of double checked and ready for a launch date. And right now, our launch date goal is late June 28th to be exact. So that's our current timeline. Does anybody have any questions?
It looks really good. It's nice to see that we are updating the website. And then also, it's nice to hear that you have the focus groups that you have put together. And the organization Juicebox that you're working with. I like what you have shown us. It's nice that, it looks good. And I know it takes a lot of work. So I thank you guys for taking on this challenge. So it's easier for folks to navigate through our website to find the information. So I know this is not an easy task, but I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you, President Hummel.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
And also, this is a massive undertaking. So, oh my gosh, our site is a beast as it is right now, and I like the way things are. I like the way it's organized here in this progression. So, will the schools still have what I would call I call them microsites, but their own sort of pages as they are right now, and then will we keep consistent with the look and the feel of and the color scheme of the district then, or how does that work?
Yes, we have a whole plan for that. And that was part of our RFP process to make sure that any vendor understands that we have those sub-pages underneath the overarching district. And that's why we even have the sitemap all aligned, separate, but it will have uniformity, the same look and feel, the same voice. And I think that continuity will be really helpful, especially from a parent's perspective coming in if you have multiple children in multiple different schools, elementary, middle school, high school.
Well, it's looking great so far. Good job, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just add my comments here also. My gosh, this is a huge undertaking. So really hats off to you guys, because Wow, it gives me a headache to just look at all those charts you've had there. Great work. Thank you.
It does. Actually, we're really excited about it. So.
Does anybody ready to, do you have that data available? Like how many pages is the district's website? I feel like every time I get there, I go on a new wild journey and often I find what I'm looking for, but it takes a little while. So I'm excited about the navigation getting better, but just out of curiosity, how big is it? Like how many pages? Do you know that offhand?
Well, Randy is the one who knows that. He's our webmaster. He wasn't able to make it tonight, but I know the last time we asked that question, he just simply said, "Oh, we have a little over 1,000."
Yep.
So
that's what he
there's
what
quite
he
a few.
shared with me too. So we've got 1,000 of pages to go through, and we're going to streamline that, and I think that'll be best for the end user. So.
And I know we already have analytics. So once that new site launches, obviously paying attention to where do people go and how long does it take them to actually answer the questions that they have so that we can continuously improve. I assume that's built into what we're going to be doing.
Very much so. Very much so. Like I said, we made a lot of decisions based on the analytics that we have now and the traffic monitoring, and we will continue that process with the new site, and it's all part of the package with Juicebox too. So.
Thank you so much, so very much. We're looking forward to the new website. Thank you for all of your work. Was there anyone else that wanted to comment before I move on? Okay, next, I will move to administration. We'll discuss the school-related decisions surrounding the pandemic and our return to learn. I will turn it over to Superintendent Bush.
Thank you, President Humbles. I think that most of you know that today, Taft Middle School had its first day of in-person learning for the entire year. Granted, that was due to the derecho, but they have been patiently waiting for their opportunity for the students who chose in person to step foot in the door. Last Wednesday, as you know, Franklin, McKinley, Washington, and Jefferson were also able to offer in-person learning. I will say that as we transitioned from the remote learning and then opened the doors a week ago to in-person learning for the entire district, that all elementaries and the other 3 middle schools, Tanya Johnson said it in her comments tonight, but none of this happens without the adults who are making the magic happen and working so incredibly hard to shift those gears. I was able to visit several of the in-person sites last week, as did other senior administrators, and the work of our principals and our staff members in the buildings, transportation back up and rolling, nutrition, and just a lot of planning and preparation had to go into that. So thank you to everyone and their patience. And we continue to navigate this path. And so today, the individual 14-day positivity rate average for our county is at 15.1%. It has gone down day after day over the past several weeks. So good to see that trend data. And we're also seeing that reflected in our healthcare system as well. The new CDC guidelines, we are feeling that within our schools and the need to quarantine. Some of them are whole classrooms just to make sure if there's a case of positivity, then of course that impacts the quarantining need. And so because we've had this remote situation a month ago, all of our classes have been in that remote situation. And so individually, we're able to transition those classrooms. And even if some of our adults have to be quarantined, they're still able to teach in a remote environment if they're able to and are well enough and are not a situation of positive case. So we are managing as we move forward. Just as I listen to other districts, everybody's learning through this and sharing their learning and sharing their practices. And we know it comes with stress, but also there's positive moments of everybody being flexible and doing the very best that they can, both children and our staff members and our families, who it's so challenging for them to have to shift and shift. And so everybody is working through it. And I think today we all saw on a national lens that a vaccination is being implemented and in sight. And so it certainly gives us all hope that our future will look differently next school year. So I don't have any further updates, but I'm very open to the discussion and questions that the board might have in regards to our return to learn processes.
Superintendent Bush, I have one question. We hear on the media that with the vaccines coming out today, and our government agencies creating a hierarchy for priorities for the vaccine. I know right now healthcare workers, long-term care facilities seem to be the #1 priority, but I do hear in that next tier of priorities, educators often included there. Has there been any communication from the governor's office to us about that possibility? Do we have any more information than what we're hearing in the media?
The only information we have is that the governor did proclaim earlier in the year that educators were essential workers. So with that proclamation, if we are defined as essential workers, I believe there would be a tier for educators as well. We have not heard any sort of clear communication of what that might mean, but we've been defined as essential, as have daycare employees been defined as essential workers. And so our hope would be that there would be implications that would come with that for our work group.
Okay.
But nothing yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Can you provide an update on staffing? I think something that I saw maybe last week or the week before, looking at like room supervisors and some additional needs. Can you just provide an update on staffing related to this change?
Sure. And we did have in one of our comprehensive high schools, just coincidentally, it was several staff members that have qualified for medical purposes, not to be on site and in person. They've been teaching remotely. So as our in-person students return, the staff's very willing to continue that remote instruction. But if students are in person in a classroom, we need an adult to monitor that classroom. So the high school design is just a little different than pre-K through 8. So those are designated positions just with the high school level. We have had some positive response to gain those employees. We also, I was in our high schools last week, and just Washington as an example, kind of a gradual process for our students coming back. Been noticing that the classrooms, there was a lot of opportunity for social distancing at this point in time. So we're not quite seeing the numbers of in-person just yet. And we anticipate that might shift as the days progress here. So that was one position. As we are also finding, we really do need, it's not new to this year in the pandemic, and that is substitutes. And so tonight you reviewed that long-term substitute wage. And so we're hoping that opportunities like that will give us a competitive advantage to hiring some long-term substitutes. And then now is the time where we see semester graduates. So thanks to our HR team for reaching out to our colleges and looking at those early graduates at the semester who are looking for employment. But it continues to be a juggle. However, I think because of the remote instruction, we have teachers that have become a lot more flexible with how and where they can teach. So if a class gets quarantined and the teacher also has to be quarantined, that doesn't mean that the learning has to stop. And as difficult it is to shift, we're finding those pathways to shift. But absolutely, we still struggle with staffing, as many districts are right now.
Right. Anyone else?
Noreen, along the lines on the staffing, do we still have a lot of openings to fill for para educators right now?
We actually put some of that hiring on hold, in that we found that with some of the way that we were staffing in our special education in-person environments, we were able to staff with the staff that we have in person. However, we do know that we still struggle to hire our para educators, so that hiring process was put on hold as we were able to staff what we needed to staff. And also, I think when you looked at our enrollment and the loss that we've had, that we have some losses within our student population as well. So we were just able to shift staffing responsibilities. But I anticipate this year we're going to be able to find ways. We've been creative all along to be able to give our kids what they need and when they need it. It's next year that I'm looking at what might happen this spring when we're really seeking to fill positions. I hope that we have an employee pool. I know many organizations are concerned about their employee pool because of the pandemic. So that's our hope, is that we're not sustaining long-term effects from this. Great question.
Well, and along those lines, when we do hire para educators, do we run into the same thing that we run into with long-term substitutes? Are we paying the same as our neighboring districts?
I could have Linda comment on this, as she's done several salary studies, especially around para educators. So Linda, do you want to comment on that?
Sure, thank you so much. Yeah, so we've done a little bit of research around this each year. We kind of take a look at our surrounding districts to try to compare. And what we do is we look at the total compensation. So we look at not only the base wage, but also all the other benefits that our employees receive, and where we kind of I would classify it as our package for days off, as well as some of our benefits that we offer, is a little bit more generous than what we see in some of our surrounding districts. And so some of our surrounding districts may have a higher rate of pay for their base wage, but they have less days that they work. And so at the end of the day, when you look at total compensation, we're very, very competitive that way. And we've talked about that a couple of different times now in regards to how might we address that on a long-term basis?
Right.
I would also say, Linda, that we offer a lot of professional learning opportunities to our para educators, and we compensate them for those opportunities. Some of them are choice, some of them are mandated, but those are also, in comparison with other districts, we do actually compensate our employees for more days, and some of those are even professional learning opportunities.
And the reason that matters is the more days. So if you look at a total annual salary for an employee, the more days they work, the more salary they're going to make over the long run. So if you do that comparison of our district compared to other districts on an annual basis, we're very competitive that way because of the extra days that we offer.
And I'm only bringing this up because I've noted it when I've looked for this, and I went looking for it because somebody brought it up to me, but that's all great if you can get somebody to apply. But if they see a lower wage and they see a higher one here, they're going to go over here to apply. So just thinking about how we address that long term when it comes to staffing shortages that I feel like we're always, every school district is facing that right now.
Do we have any other questions about the pandemic, surrounding the pandemic, or the return to learn that we just really need to get answered this evening?
If I may, I know we were talking about high school, and I think most of the folks here know that I have a couple of high schoolers myself, so I know those class sizes are pretty small. At the younger grades, are some of those classes, did they end up getting pretty big with a lot of kids choosing in person? Is that issue that we see with social distancing? If it is, then, what are some of the steps that we're taking to alleviate that?
I don't think Director Christensen is on tonight, but I'm going to have Deputy Superintendent Quaker respond to a lot of the analysis that's happened with the executive directors.
So Director Tominski, what pieces do you want me to touch base on, to be specific, if you can?
Like class sizes. I mean, like we were getting, as we were coming back from the waiver, some of the letters that I know that I was receiving was just concerned about class sizes, the ability to properly distance some of those younger grades.
Okay.
Certainly what I'm experiencing firsthand is just in line with what Superintendent Bush experienced visiting Wash, that a lot of those kids, they're single digits, a lot of the classes that my boys are in, but my understanding is that that's not the case at the younger grades. So I'm just trying to get some clarity on that.
Okay, appreciate you clarifying. Thank you so much. So no, you were right. If you visit any of the elementary buildings and the middle school buildings and then the high school buildings, they're all very different. So we have had it set where the 25 is the magic number. Our goal has been 20, but when we look at 25, we look at shifting staffing to help support in the in-person environment if it gets over that number. We've carefully cohorted those students. Of course, now, there's the whole quarantine of the class, unless you can maintain that 6 feet distance, which is virtually impossible in any school setting, especially unless you don't have very many kids there at this point in time. So right now, that has been the number. As you guys know as well, we have 2 more days where parents have the opportunity to make a request for a change in environments. And we have over 200 parents that have already put in. All of them aren't shifting in person. There's actually a pretty decent balance, but there's more asking for that in person. So they have through Wednesday, and then the executive director team along with HR will be working on, again, looking at those numbers, working as hard as we can to keep students socially distanced and staff and everyone safe. With that said, in order to educate students in person and keep those numbers somewhat balanced, remember our remote environment otherwise gets extremely large where it's hard to meet the needs of students in that environment as well, with teachers trying to balance interventions and progress monitoring, especially for the little ones. So again, I think we've been really careful about that cohorting. If you look at middle school, our numbers are higher as well. I mean, there's some that are under 20, but there are some, again, if they're over 25, we add a staff and we shift them from the remote environment. But those have been also cohorted where they don't intermix throughout the school day. Again, if a student has it, whether there's 8 in the classroom or 10, those students do have to be, that class would fully be quarantined based on the new guidelines from Lynn County Public Health. But we're putting those mitigation strategies in place. But again, being honest, there are up to 25 kids in a class. And again, if you visit, it feels pretty normal. I mean, there's masks, so I don't know what normal, I shouldn't say normal. What is the new normal, right? But there's quite a few kids in classes, and it's again about trying to keep everybody separated and safe. And it's very different at the high school with a couple kids in a classroom. But it's also very different trying to teach students to, read and write and do math. The younger they are, I think the more challenging it's been in that remote environment, which is why parents and families and also the working with the daycare have sent more of their students back. But really proud of, the teachers, the principals, Sandy Byard, I don't know how many emails she sent today, just reminding people about socially distancing, keeping your mask on, wearing a face shield when you can, washing your hands, doing all those mitigation strategies. So I think everybody is doing as much as they can in a situation that's not ideal.
Thank you.
Comment. I don't think even at 20 students per class, there's the physical size in a classroom to have the social distance. I think we're in many cases, we're falling behind classes in that. Even 20 students in a normal elementary classroom or middle school classroom, there just isn't, the room isn't big enough to get a 6 foot social distancing.
Completely agree with that, Director Anholt. There is not 6 feet social distancing between students in those environments. And again, that's why we've been intentional about cohorting. and the staff are doing a great job keeping them as distanced as they can. But even with 15, and all the classrooms, as you know, in the various buildings aren't the same size. Some are larger than others, but there's definitely a challenge with that. And that's why that cohort's so important.
Thank you for the update. We appreciate that. We appreciate our staff, our students, everyone, all the work that you've done to keep our students safe, everyone safe in our schools. So I thank you all for all the work that you are doing. Next, we will have a moment of silence as we adjourn our meeting this evening. We'd like to close in a moment of silence to recognize one of our staff members. I'll turn the meeting over to Sherry Lusky, who is our accounting manager.
Thank you, Nancy. Roseanne Hyatt of Marion, Iowa, passed away on Sunday, November 22nd, 2020 at St. Luke's Hospital in Cedar Rapids. Roseanne was born July 27, 1960 in Manchester. She graduated from West Delaware High School and went on to receive an associate degree from Northeast Iowa Community College. Roseanne was an accounts payable specialist with Cedar Rapids Community School District and worked at the district office. She worked in our accounting department for 7.5 years. She worked with numerous staff members at all buildings and departments and was a special friend to many. She especially enjoyed celebrating her 60th birthday with us in July. No confetti, just flowers and balloons. Roseanne was dedicated and always did her best, especially on our check run Thursdays. She was a pleasure to talk with. She was patient, kind, and very helpful. Roseanne was a sweetheart to work with, and her family meant everything to her. Coming from a family of 11 siblings, we often heard about how to prepare big batches of mashed potatoes, several turkeys, and wonderful desserts. She shared with us the pride and joy, the love she had for her kids, including a special trip to Florida a few years ago. Of course, it was on her terms. There would be no airplane ride. The apple orchard trips, weddings, graduations, and of course, the fun she had with her grandchildren outdoors and in the kitchen. I would expect at least one of them to be a baker. Roseanne is survived and lovingly remembered by her 4 children, Cassandra and Matt Westerberry of Marion, Dustin and Emily Hyatt of Aurora, Iowa, Dylan Hyatt of Marion, and Kirsten Hyatt of Marion. 5 grandchildren, Landry and Jocelyn Westbury, and Reagan, Gavin, and Chandler Hyatt. Siblings, Bob and Karen Fangman, Mary Kay and Vic, Dan and Brent, Doris and Dave Lawrence, Darlene and Steve Cornwell, Dick and Leanne Fangman, Herb and Mary Fangman, Linda and Gary Sigler, Karen, Kathy and Don McCurdy, Terry and Ray Cooksley, Carla and Mark Dingbaum, and many nieces, nephews, and cousins. Roseanne enjoyed cooking, baking, and tending to her flower gardens. Most of all, Roseanne loved spending time with her family. She will be greatly missed and always loved by many. As we observe this moment of silence in memory of Roseanne Hyatt, let us remember her positive impact with those she worked with at our school district.
Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family. With no further business, We stand adjourned, and thank you all.